We are going to talk about diffusion of innovation. And yes, I must add at the same time, a very important associated issue is incentives. Incentives are important per se, as I will mention in a minute, but incentives which make us, which motivate us, which help us in stretching ourselves a little beyond our call of duty to share, to diffuse innovations. What do we do? When we feel under stress for any issue, and if it is not too debilitating stress, then our mind starts exploring different options. So how do we create that stress which makes it think of different options? So this is my first submission today, that while each one of us has the same sky, we all may have a different North Star. Dhruv ka Tara, North Star. Essentially, the North Star pulls us in the direction of the goal. So even independent of this class, if you think of it for a minute, for your life, for your growth, for your happiness, for your success in life, then you will realize that those who have a North Star, even if it is hazy, go very far compared to those who haven't yet discovered what is the North Star of their life. So for diffusion, it becomes important. Which target group do we want to reach? In what time frame do we want to reach? So if we are impatient, if we are uneasy, things happen faster. Because our goal is there, we know. It may be hazy, as I said, but it is there. I hope all of you are with me on this subject. Anybody disagrees with it? And of course, it is you who will decide what your North Star is. Institutions can also sometimes help you, but essentially it is your North Star. All right. Now let us look at dimensions of innovation and see how these dimensions will have a role in influencing the pathway. There are different dimensions of innovations. The innovations could be open source, or DIY, do it yourself, or IP protected. Origin may be some individual, community, NGO, private public sector firm, or R&D firm, international organization, or sometime anonymous. So let's say CSIR lab may have developed an innovation which is for common use. That means there is no IP protection. There is no restriction on that. Now that will be hopefully a little easier to diffuse, provided there is a pull for it. That means somebody is wanting that. We will have to create demand for it. And I'll share with you how do we create demand for our solutions. Complexity of this obviously can be low or high. Degree of disruption by that innovation that we are studying, that we want to diffuse, could be incremental, could be architectural, could be very strong disruption, or could be radical. We all know that when cell phones also included watch, earlier we all used to have a watch. Now fewer people have watch. Most people have resorted to seeing the time in cell phone. So it has disrupted watch to a large extent. Many people still keep, that's fine, because they think that opening cell phone and then seeing time is cumbersome. I just want to have it on my hand, which is fine. Some people will still have, but many people may not have. There are many other technologies which have disrupted our conventional way of solving problems. You all know that. Which sector does this innovation belong to? Which is it technological, or is it institutional? Is it educational, behavioral? All of that makes a difference. So when masking started during the pandemic, the first issue was tie any cloth. 3 layers of any cloth would prevent 95% of the possibility of infection. That was a simple message. But what required compliance was a behavioral change. So different methods were used for behavioral change. The most popular method, which is generated about 275 crore of fine, was fine. You fine people, those who are not wearing mask. Some other people did something else. They said, no, what we will do, we will stop the person who is not wearing mask and give him a mask or her a mask. That was positive incentive. You are giving person an incentive to use mask. You're not, he or she cannot complain that, look, I didn't have, I forgot, it fell down, whatever. No, I'm giving you, please use it now. That's a second attempt. Some people try to do shaming. Some people try to provide incentive. Some people find, as I said earlier, that there can be different kinds of methods that we can use for behavioral change. So innovations may not always be technological sometimes, or for that matter, institutional, but they can also be behavioral. Hand washing is a behavioral solution. Now, how do we encourage? So I don't know if I mentioned to you this example that when we had the HP and Kriya Honeybee Network Creativity and Inclusive Innovation Award in December 2020. This award, there was one from Turkey. I may have mentioned, it was 3D printed soap having a small trinket inside, a small toy for children. Now, this soap brought about a behavioral change because children will force the elders, we want our toys, so let's wash our hands. Please wash your hands faster, more often, etc., etc. So children were pushing their adults for a behavioral change that society wanted to overcome the spread of coronavirus. So we need to see whether whenever we try to talk about a technological change, innovation, we must ask ourselves, is it only technology that is required? Is there a behavioral change that is required with it? Is there an institutional change that is required with it? Is there a policy incentive that is required for it? So essentially, the product, process, service, system, and policy, PPSSP, product, process, service, system, policy. These are the essentials. Varying extent, different dimension, different elements will be important, but almost in all technologies, some of these will be involved at the same time. So you may have a product, then you may have a process to use that product. You may have a service which will help maintain the product. You have a system where various stakeholders in using that solution will coordinate their action, and you will have a policy which incentivizes people to use that product. So this is how value chain is built. So when we transfer technology, we often talk about, but it goes from my lab and goes to somebody else. That's all my job is. No, no, no. Our job is to build whole ecosystem around it. And we may not build it ourselves, but we have to help the buyer, the licensee, or the community, as the case may be, those who are interested in sharing that technology to understand. To give you an example, many of our grassroots innovators are very good in making frugal solutions, developing frugal solutions. But where they lack is they don't give as good an after-sales service as, let's say, companies may do. They also don't make many times videos of how to maintain. Where should I do lubrication in a food processing machine? How often should I do that? Which nuts and bolts I should tighten and how often I should tighten, because they are likely to get loosened because of the motion of the machine, centrifugal process in the machine. So these are very simple things which can increase the efficiency, improve the life of the machine, and it may be ignored by the innovators themselves. So one area, and this applies to the CSR technologies, we may also not do that sometimes. We may not, I don't know, let me stop for a minute. Will you give example where you have developed such either posters or small videos while transferring technology, which will provide help to the user to maintain the solution that you're providing? Anybody? Have you done that? Has any lab done that? No answer? Anybody has any example where your lab has transferred a technology And along with that, it has not only given a small manual. Priyanka, would you like to share? But has also made small videos describing how to maintain that solution. So Imtech has shared the technology to the industry. Pranaya, can you tell us whether while sharing the technology, if I don't know whether it was mechanical or it was a biological technology. If it was a biological technology, then you must have shared the process also along with the, let's say, cultures or microbial culture or whatever. But when it is mechanical technology or electronic technology or chemical technology, sometimes the processes have to be illustrated and a poster may have to go it. Okay, let's go further and look at the other factors. Target group. So target group could be common people, could be companies, could be intermediate social groups, could be elite, could even be developed countries. So many times when developed countries, companies like GE, General Electric, they developed a ECG machine in India for low cost for Indian customer, $250. But they found that it has market even in US. That is called reverse innovation. When you develop innovation for developing emerging economy and you find it has potential even in the developed countries. So when you have technology developed for the developing country, but can be used by the developed countries as well, that is called reverse innovation. There could be different target group. Let me just take you to the next slide and then come back on this slide. So let's say there are people who have a potential for using innovation, and there are people who are desirable target group. That means those whom we want to reach. So let's say poor people are the ones that we want to reach, but potential for that technology exists even among the rich. Ideally, the actual user should be where the intersection of the both is. But many times, people who are resourceful economically are able to benefit because they have both the potential for using technology, but also, and they also get access to it. But those who are desirable group, that is where those whom we want to serve, they may not have all the resources required to use technology. So let's say you have a cattle feed, which is highly nutritive, but requires a particular ratio of green fodder and the feed concentrate, a protein-rich formula. Now, some people who cannot provide enough green fodder will not be able to get full benefit from the concentrate that is being suggested. But there are other people who are better off. They are not the desired target group, but they actually will have the potential to use it because they have enough green fodder of their own. They will benefit from it. So actual user will be not among those whom we wanted, but maybe toward those whom we did not want to reach, but those who had the potential and use it. So this kind of some leakage takes place. That's why many times we find that some technologies that we develop for poor actually may also reach the richer people because they find it useful. So once Professor Vernon Rattan had mentioned one very interesting point. He said, there are very few technologies for the poor which rich cannot benefit from. So this kind of drift of a solution from target group to the non-target group will always remain. We have to only ensure that people for whom we have intended, they get it at least. So if it is a variety, let's say, or if it is a machine, a weeder, then it must be in the income bracket of the workers who need to use this machine. Otherwise, it will only go to the farmers, and within farmers, maybe to those who can afford it. So whenever we develop solutions and we make them smarter and smarter, we forget that in the process we are missing out. You all know the example that I have been giving many times, that in our anxiety to make online education more and more effective, we forgot about those who didn't have smartphone. And today, my colleague Chetan was talking to one teacher, Dilip Bhai Balgamia, very innovative teacher. And he said, sir, even those who have a smartphone, if they have one smartphone, they give to the boy, not to the daughter, girl. Now look at this. So even in the online education, how many parents would have, if they have 3 children or 2 children, they will have 2 smartphones. They will have one, whom they will give, unfortunately, to the sons. And again, the daughter gets discriminated. Very unfortunate. Our policy planners know this. They haven't done anything about it. This is very unfortunate that about more than 50% children of this country have remained for last 15 months out of online education. So this is a case where if we use a particular technology, that itself leads to exclusion rather than inclusion. Because we are doing online, because it requires smartphone or laptop, because it requires internet, we lose track of that. So now, because YouTube was not working, we took the course to the Facebook. But imagine some of you did not have access to the internet, maybe because in the region where you were, internet was weak. That's the reason you were not able to join online. I think it is a weakness of our system that we are not able to reach you in time. So what is the best we can do in that case? We send you the recordings, which we have shared today. Today, you will get a list of all the previous lectures and their YouTube links so that anybody who missed any class can always see that. And we have tried to edit so that when we give a break or something, those times, you don't have to wait for that long, or you don't have to skip over that. We have tried to edit that. Now let us look at the next issue. Location, very simple. Location could be rural, urban, coastal, wherever. Scale can be global or local or micro. And of course, it is blendable or recombinable or fixed package. This is very important. Whenever we give a solution, we must make it possible that do I have to adopt all components of the innovation or the technology? Or can I recombine the components into the package that I want? So that is something that we need to pay attention to also. Let us go further. Any question, please stop me. Don't let me go further if some points are not clear. Please stop, please ask. I will appreciate that very much. Now, you all know about S-curve. S-curve is what? Then first it increases at a slow rate, then increases at the constant rate, then increases at the increasing rate. That is what is called as S-curve. So that is what the general expectation is, that the innovation will diffuse slowly, then at constant rate, and then at increasing rate. But actually speaking, it may not be a straight line or a simple S-curve. It may be a lot of curved processes because of various reasons that we will see. So it could be by people themselves share the innovation with others. We may or may not keep track. Sometimes by not keeping track, we slow down the innovation diffusion. People think nobody is caring, nobody is checking us, nobody is finding out from us. So maybe it is not important. So please remember, whenever you share innovation for the common people, it is useful to randomly call people and check, have you used it? How did you find it? And this kind of a behavior will make more people take interest in it because they think you are following up. It may be useful. Even companies do that. When your service is due, they remind you. When you buy something, they ask you, how was the service? When you make a call to the bank asks you, were you satisfied with the IRV, IVR, or whatever service that was there? So therefore, the companies bother about it. Many times R&D firms or R&D institutions do not, and my suggestion would be that please pay attention to this. Grassroots innovators, some grassroots innovators who are very successful do call up the user to whom they have sold machine. How is it working? Is it all right? How is my seat performing? Is it all right? Randomly, they will check with some of the users, how is the solution working? But if you don't check, then people will feel we're not interested. Even in Gyan, when we finance a lot of innovation under Micro Venture Innovation Fund, my colleagues call up and find out whether or not people have used the money properly, what is happening to their enterprise, are they getting good returns? All of these things are monitored. And that's why people are able to pay back most of the cases. Now, there are innovations which go through modification in the hand of user. We gave you some solution, but you may like to modify it according to your need. So this means there is a differentiation during diffusion. Very important point. We have not paid enough attention in literature as well as in practice. Even in the CSIR technology, let's say you have licensed technology to 15 entrepreneurs, but you're not care to see whether any one of those entrepreneurs you may have, but you may not have, that whether any of those entrepreneurs has modified your method or your technology to make it more effective. And then you will learn it back from them. That will be reverse flow. The user-driven innovation, that is what it means, that when user of your innovation or your product modifies it, and you learn from that. So that future, when you give it to other users, you incorporate that feature. I'll tell you an example from a corporate sector. So there was a committee I was chairing on for oil sector. So oil companies, Indian Oil and various other HP and so on, they were sharing their innovations in the oil sector. Many years ago, there used to be a committee of oil sector which gave awards to the company. So there was one supervisor in Baroda refinery who noticed a problem. There is a control room, a simulation room, which is sync in time, real time with the main plant. So when you have to service this simulation chamber, you will have to stop the main plant. So every 15 days, there was a pipe from which the gas will come. And when the gas expanded, the precipitation of the salt took place. The nozzle of the pipe got clogged. So every 15 days, the Canadian company which sold this simulation chamber to the fertilizer plant, asked them to the refinery, asked them to stop the plant every 15 days, clean this nozzle, and then because it is sink, you can diffuse. So one day production every 15 days was lost. This supervisor was very smart. He asked a question: why does precipitation take place? Because gas expands. When gas expands, what happens? It cools down. So cooling process leads to the precipitation. So what did he do? The pipe which was outside the simulation chamber, he put a heating coil on that. So he heated the gas. When this hot gas expanded, it was through the pipe, expanded in the chamber, it did not precipitate any longer. It did not cool down enough to precipitate. So now the chamber would work without stopping. The Canadian company incorporated this improvement in its simulation chamber for the whole world where they were selling this. This was an innovation by the user, by the supervisor in the plant who saw this problem in a chemical plant and modified it. So please understand that user of industrial plant, user of farming solution, user of rural user, anybody can make a modification in the technology, and we must be willing to learn from the users of our solutions to find out if they have made any modification. Even in a biochemical process, even in a chemical process, the users can make modification. For example, you know that CCMB, they made a modification in the RT-PCR process by which 2 steps in the chain were reduced so that the time which was spent, they reduced it to, I think, 25 minutes. Some other entrepreneurs have reduced it to 10 minutes. The same RT-PCR method was modified by these startups or these scientists to reduce the time within which the process took place for identification of the virus. This could be the inducement. The innovations can also diffuse through inducement. There could be subsidies, there could be information, there could be look at the create awareness among the user. The whole range of methods can be followed for inducing innovation. There are many research papers on induced innovation where the argument is that whichever factor is scarce, we try to leverage that factor so that the user is incentivized to use it better. There could be people supporting it or subsidizing the innovation, and therefore, of course, you can take help of NGOs sometimes to diffuse innovation. Now, when we diffuse innovation, we should ask ourselves the question: what do we diffuse? Do we diffuse the solution? Do we diffuse the solution as a metaphor so that people can develop their own solution? Do we diffuse the principle underlying the innovation, heuristic? Or do we diffuse the entire ecosystem? This is a question relevant for those of you who may like to do more research on the subject, who may like to go deeper into the subject, and may ask ourselves a question that is it enough to give a solution? Or do I use it as a metaphor? Do I give the principle? And then people will develop the solution as they wish. For example, I will repeat this example that I gave earlier, that when we reviewed the innovations for kerosene stove, about 15 of them, we found that either you heat the gas, kerosene, or you heat the air, or both, and the combustion efficiency almost doubles or 3 times sometimes. So from 20 to 30%, 40%, 60, 50%, not 60, but 50, 55%, 52%, it could reach by heating the kerosene. How do you heat the kerosene? Either you take the pipe of kerosene around the burner, or you take the 4 pillars on which you rest the things. Those pillars have the kerosene, or different methods are followed by which the kerosene gets heated. How do you heat the air? Below the burner, you put a strainer, a wire, a copper mesh. So when the air goes up to the burner, after the mesh sheet has heated up, air becomes hot. So air becomes hot, fuel becomes hot, combined together, combustion efficiency goes up. This is a principle. If you give the principle, people will find their own ways of doing both. For example, one innovator, Mr. Shivsagar Mandal in Guwahati, what he did in auto rickshaw, he took the coil from the exhaust pipe of the auto rickshaw, got the hot air and mixed with the carburetor, and thereby improved the efficiency of combustion. So there are different people who have tried different things, but the concept is very important. Many times we think people are fool enough. People are not intelligent enough to be able to understand the concept. So we only tell them a solution, but not tell them the principle underlying the solution. To give you an example, many times scientists will tell, sow this crop in 3rd week of October. No. Tell them what temperature should be there. It should be given maybe variables by which they can measure the temperature. That temperature may come in the 1st week or may come in the 4th week. If temperature and humidity are important factors, tell them those factors rather than only telling 3rd week. 3rd week may not be fixed. It's after all a changing weather. So many times scientists have not cared to understand the capability of people to process this information. Any questions so far before I proceed further? Any questions so far? This was a slide which you have seen earlier. I'm using it to remind you what we had looked at. We had looked at the motivations for the innovations. We had looked at the triggers which influence and then we looked at the initiative that innovators may take to develop innovations. And then, of course, diffusion. Now we are on the last leg of this. Diffusion has 2 dimensions. There are some people who adopt a solution and then discontinue because they are smart. They learn that it is not useful technology. Others are late to adopt and late to discontinue. So there are different dimensions. We will look at them later. But let me mention about this curve. This is a very famous curve by Everett Rogers, 1961, where he talked about innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. This is not clearly typed. Laggards is the last word. And early adopter, early majority, late majority, laggards. Can anybody tell me what is the mistake in this diagram? Where did Roger go wrong? What is the limitation of this model? Anybody can tell me? Many of you might have heard about this model. Even in marketing, we use this. Some people are early adopter of any new product that comes in the market. Some are following that. Some follow late adopters. And of course, there are laggards. As the diffusion takes place, the market share increases. What is the limitation of this?
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I'm not understanding this. The market share is going up and up, but
market share, because cumulative market share is nothing but cumulative frequency of this. So when more people use, your share goes up, isn't it? That's a simple thing.
Okay, but the new users are going to 0 at the last.
Sorry?
New user are going to zero.
No. When market is saturated 100%, then where is the scope of any other user? You see, at the 100% share,
Okay,
the
okay,
new
sir.
user
Okay.
is zero by definition, isn't it?
Okay, sir. Understand.
Yeah. Now let me tell you where this mistake, where the mistake is, where Roger was wrong. Roger did not realize that I, as a user, it is a behavioral curve. But actually, my behavior is not as simple to understand as this curve tries to make it. I may be early adopter for electronics, and I may be a late adopter for kitchenwares. So I may be having very old tools in my kitchen, and I may have a lot of gadgets in my office or in my working table. I'll put it other way around. I may be very early adopter of kitchenwares, and I'm a very laggard in terms of new models of phone, new models of scanners, or wherever, various other technological gadgets that come. So when it takes to when we go into agriculture, in the winter season, that is Rabi season of the crop, when wheat and chickpea and these crops are grown, I may adopt a new variety of wheat, but I may be using traditional variety of paddy. So in paddy season, in monsoon season, I am a laggard. And in the winter season, I am an early adopter. What kind of model this is? So then we must recognize that as a behavior, I'm not early adopter in all domains of knowledge, all domains of technologies. So it is not a behavioral attribute. It is the complementarity between my preference and the attributes of the product. That is the point to be remembered. It is very easy to tell, oh, people are conservative. They're not adopting because they are laggard. No, they're not laggard. There may be something wrong either in our technology or the way we are diffusing it, or the affordability of the technology, or its resilience may be low. It may not be flexible enough. Those are the reasons why people are not adopting it. We should not blame the people always when there is something not, or maybe I have not shown it widely enough. As I told you earlier, in agricultural technologies, we had a system of on-farm trial, diffusion, demonstration. In industrial technology, in CSR lab, where is that facility except in aroma mission on some other such missions? We have not showcased our solutions at 5,000 locations or 1,000 locations. For agriculture, this is a common thing. So please remember that there is a need for us to pay attention to this. Now, this was the adoption diffusion diagram that some of you may remember, many of you may have forgotten. Hi, Vaishnavi, this graph is correct for one technology at a time. Yes, you are right, but not for a portfolio of technologies and not for individual behavior. I mean, you cannot say that I am laggard in all technologies. I may be laggard in one technology. I may be laggard, let's say, in smartphone technology. I may not be very keen to buy a new model of. Some people are very keen. Whenever a new model comes, they want to upgrade it. Many people will not. So we must distinguish the propensity to adopt a technology is not always a function of my behavioral attribute. It may be a function of my specific preference or need in that segment. What are we talking about? We're talking about the riskiness of the technology, endowment. Do I have the complementary assets? You have a plow which is heavy, and my bullocks are very tiny or very small or very weak. Then there is no complementarity between the solution that you're giving and the animals that I have, in which case the adoption will not take place. Or the solution that you're giving is very risky. The crossbred cattle may have high mortality. It needs fans in the cattle shed. I may not be able to afford a fan. And the temperature is very high, and I cannot cool the environment. So then the hybrid cattle may not be useful for me. The gender adaptivity, the machine or the device may not have been designed keeping ergonomics that will suit women, and therefore it doesn't work for that. Or maybe some people are left-hander, some people are right-hander. That could another be the problem. Modularity, sometimes technology is not decomposable into component. There are 5 things which are required for a solution to work. I cannot provide all the 5. I can provide 3. Will it work? Either all or none? No. Some solutions should be such where if I provide all the 5, I may get 60% increase. If I provide 4, I may get 30%. If I provide 2, I may get 20%. If I provide only 1, I may get 10%. At least some additive effect may be there of different factors. We need to work out such possibilities because not all people in our country are capable of providing all complements of a solution. So please keep this in mind. When we're designing solutions, we should try to be flexible. We should try to see whether we can bring in additive features so that people can modify, can improve upon. As their incomes increase, they can try to add more and more component to the solution and become more efficient user or become more profitable user. There could be attitudinal, seasonality, and other issues. That let's come to the discontinuous. A lot of research has been done on adoption of technology, but much less has been done on discontinuance of technology. You gave a solution. You gave me a growth promoter, or you gave me, let's say, a diagnostic tool, or you gave me an instrument for hemoglobin test or blood test or whatever. And I took it. So let us take the case of oximeter, because that's a recent example. First time we were all using, most of us, not all, but many of us were using oximeter first time because we didn't have to. Of course, if you go to high altitude, because of the oxygen problem at high altitude, say Ladakh, 12,000 feet and above, you actually may have to monitor your oxygen level. Otherwise, you may become incoherent, your cognitive functions go down. So many times people, when they adopted, they did not know that the value that comes in oximeter doesn't come on the first movement correctly. You need to use it for an hour, for a minute or two. And you need to use it on the second finger, not the first finger. And the second finger will give you more accurate information. The skin is less rubbed off, and it has less, the penetration of the waves is much better. So sometimes people may use it early and discontinue. Sometimes people use it late and then discontinue early. Sometimes people adopt early but discontinue late, and some people adopt late and discontinue late. There are 4 combinations as are given here under the table on discontinuous. This is useful for those of you who would like to study why certain things happen the way they happen. Why some people adopt early and discontinue early. In fact, those who discontinue early are very important part of our learning system, because they must have found some weakness in our solution. They're smart people. We need to go to them and check with them. Look, friend, you tried our solution and then you have discontinued it. Maybe there must be some weakness in our solution. Tell us what it was. We'll try to improve upon it. So please remember, don't focus only on those who adopt your solutions. Also learn from those who reject your solution. And this reaction can come at different stages of the adoption. That's very important. Also look for the experimentation by the user, modifications that user are bringing about. Don't leave them. So let's look at now what happened during the crisis of COVID. Various solutions were developed. One of the solutions was paddle-driven dispenser of sanitizer, or paddle-driven pouring of water for hand washing. And it diffused very widely. Very quickly, it diffused widely. Around the world, it diffused. We did a study in 113 countries through UNDP Innovation Extension Lab, where we have ion-dynamic taught a course called MIST, Management of Inclusive Innovation for Social Transformation. And we used this, we had the data, and we found it diffused very widely. What were the factors? First factor was it met an emergent unmet need. So naturally, if you have a quick need, you don't want to touch it. Different people will touch it. They will, the surface of the tap or handle or operating part may get infected. So nobody want to take that risk. It affected everybody, rich and poor, everywhere. North, south, east, west, nowhere, everywhere. Was easy to fabricate. It did not require any approval, no regulatory problem. Imitation was easy, adaptation was easy. Youth got a thrill when they developed this and everybody appreciated it. Didn't cost much, had multiple application. It was used for hand washing as well as dispensing sanitizer. And community bureaucracy, etc., were supportive. No, it didn't hurt anybody's interest. Nobody came in the way. So because of all these reasons, we found rapid. Now, all the reasons, all of these, or some of these, may come in the way of diffusion. So please remember that these are the examples. This is just one example why a solution diffused widely across the world. Within 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we found in Uganda, in Zambia, in Philippines, in Malaysia, in India, people were developing foot pedal dispenser. Now, this is very important. I may have mentioned, but I would like to describe again. Long tail of innovation. What is long tail of innovation? The long tail of innovation means that some innovations will diffuse very widely. They are called superhit. Some will diffuse much less, and some will not diffuse much at all. We should remember that not all innovations are meant to diffuse widely, either because the need doesn't exist everywhere, or the constraint doesn't exist everywhere, or sometimes it may not be even desirable for sustainability point of view. You go to a garden and only one kind of flower grows everywhere. Would you like to stay in that garden for a long time? You may not, as I mentioned earlier. You need a diversity sometime. Or if the problem of a particular disease, rare disease, is there about 10,000 people, and you say, well, but your solution has gone to only about 8,000. 8,000 out of 10 is 80%. 80% potentially affected people have used that solution. You should be happy about it. What can the innovator do if the solution is only potential market is only 10,000? Many times this incentive structure, and we'll come to that in a minute, is distorted. We don't find incentives for diffusing innovation widely or for niches, small field niches. Very serious problem. So niche-based needs are there. There should be legitimate concern about this. The innovations that are relevant for small communities they receive less attention from scholars. Naturally, we should think about it. There are sometimes innovations with moderate diffusion potential. We should make them more easy to modify. Word of mouth is very powerful in that case. And of course, regional networks can be used. When it is diffusion is of DIY solution, share openly, don't restrict. And support information with capacity building. It's not enough to give me a solution. I should also know how to use it. Build my capacity. Sometimes give me risk capital. So GAN provides, in the collaboration with SIDBI, Small Scale Industries Development Bank of India, we have created a micro venture innovation fund. Under single signature, we provide money, lakhs of rupees, to the innovators. No guarantee, no group guarantee, no collateral. In many cases, we have not even visited them because of COVID. But today itself, I signed about, my colleague had signed about 10, 15 checks, and they're going to those innovators who have been sanctioned this amount by a committee jointly of GAN and SIDBI. Risk capital. They have done innovation. They need to get risk capital to multiply it. Only when they multiply the solution, replicate it, people will use it. And when people use it, they will have a feedback. And when they have feedback, it will be further improved. When it is further improved, it will diffuse more. Unfortunately, in CSIR, we have not yet developed the concept of risk capital. But I strongly urge that we should develop. Some of you should push the system in that direction. Some of you should experiment in that direction. IP protected, of course, you can give exclusive license or non-exclusive license. You can have tech commons. People-to-people innovation is free to copy. People-to-firm through licensing. We have done that for many solutions, particularly for motorcycle-based flying machine. Now it is chassis-based flying machine called as Sati or Senedo. Here, though the patent was filed in India and in US, when people-to-people copying was considered. People-to-firm through license. Sometimes we give conditional licensing. If within 3 years you don't manufacture or you don't operationalize the innovation, it will come back to us. And the money that you paid us will remain with us. Why do we do that? So that the licensee of an innovation may not kill our innovation. Let's say there's a company whose technology is less efficient than ours, but that company has already set up a plant. Our innovation, they take a license, ostensibly because they want to set up another plant, but they actually don't set up the plant, and they don't use our technology. We got money, so we keep quiet. And what has happened? An inefficient technology, less efficient technology, continues to work because the entrepreneur is not converting license into practice. So very carefully, we should develop licensing models so that we don't let anybody kill a technology to safeguard their own model, their own technology. Sometimes the technology licensing are linked license. If you take innovation from me, you have to buy raw material from me. This is not correct. That is not legally tenable. We should not insist. We should not get trapped into that. So now this is what is the long tail innovation. A horizontal axis, you have time or space. On y-axis, you have frequency, a number. So as I said, very high diffusion here, long here on the peak, and then it keeps on declining. Here it is a long nose of innovation. Much later, it diffuses. It takes long time to come into the market. Mouse was developed at least 10, 15 years before the Windows 93 came, and therefore we found use of mouse. Otherwise, mouse was not useful to us, and we didn't. But it was developed much before the use was found. And of course, you have room for many parameters. So I will skip this, and I would come to a portfolio of incentive, and then we are going to do an exercise. So portfolio of incentives can be material or non-material, individual or collective. I can have material incentive, endowment, financial award, R&D grant, etc. Non-material recognition, citation, honor. Material collective, trust fund, venture fund, incubation fund, collective award, etc. And non-material is policy changes, pedagogic changes, etc. Any question before I come to this exercise? There is a form given here. You have the form in the chat. Please open the form and add your preference of incentives that will motivate you personally, or you think your colleagues will motivate it. Either at all the 4 dimensions are given in the form for diffusing innovations, for taking extra steps to make sure that translation takes place. Is it clear? Yeah. So if you just open it, and then there are 4 dimensions: material individual, material collective, non-material individual, non-material collective. Non-material meaning non-financial, non-material, no physical aspect of it. And there are 4 dimensions. I would like to have a list that you have developed. I will share a paper with you today. After this form is filled up, your email box will have a paper where we have done a long list of the possible incentives from our mind. And Anamika have developed that. But you will see whether what you have put down, whether that is there in the list or not. If not, then send me a mail. So we write your paper. In this paper, there are 2 dozen solutions or 3 dozen ideas, but the one that we thought is not there. Then I will attribute you. We will attribute you in our revised paper and include that. So kindly try. What we are saying is that incentives can be material, individual. They can be material, collective, non-material, individual, and non-material, collective. 4 kinds of incentives. And these incentives will influence us. How do we share innovations with people? As I said, incentives must also be not only for diffusing innovations, but also for ensuring the users benefit from them. Many times, innovators do not provide manual, do not provide videos. So what kind of incentive we need to do that? Sachin, you have a question? Material collective is when solution incentive is given to a group. And material individual is when incentive is given, a material incentive, financial, or let's say R&D. You have a lab and I give you equipments which will improve your lab performance. That is material individual. Material collective is when the whole team is rewarded, not one individual. So let's say I give a team a picnic in a forest. You go to forest. You have done wonderful research. You deserve some break. Institute will hire a bus. Will arrange your food. Go and have 2 days off in a forest and relax. That's collective. Vaishnavi, is it clear now? We have found so far only one. Gitanjali has. No. You don't have to put yes or no. You have to mention the incentive. Gitanjali, please mention the incentive that you want to give for individuals. How can individuals be motivated for translational efficiency? How can non-material benefits be given to individual? As I mentioned, appreciation in a meeting is a non-material individual. I tell Gitanjali has done a great job before the entire lab or before the entire institute. You feel happy that everybody, the director appreciated your work. But actually, there's nothing material given to you, but that's important. So appreciation. So that's right, recognition. So recognition could be in public place, recognition could be in privately. I call to your director calls you to his office and then appreciates. That's one kind of recognition. Recognition director can sign a letter to you, or DG can send a letter to you. Look, your effort have led this solution to go to 50,000 people or 5 lakh people. We are very happy. That can be there. Recognition can come from the media. Your newspaper articles come various kind of ways in which non-material individual, non-material collective incentives can come. So please keep mentioning. Bushra has mentioned. You can add more than one also if you wish to. Others are still thinking. We have not added. Those who are looking at this talk in the Facebook, you can also mention which kind of incentives will encourage diffusion of innovation. What kind of incentives we give? What should innovators do to ensure more people use their solution? Individually, what they should do, collectively, what they should do, materially or non-materially. What are we trying to do? We are trying to find motive. I'm going to show you a small film after this, and you will realize I didn't show it to you before this form because I didn't want to influence you. But when you see this film, you realize that our motivations are very strange. We believe that everybody is motivated by money, but actually that's not true. That's not true. But for some people, it is true. For many people, it is not true. Krishna, you have not mentioned the incentive. You have just written incentive, but mention what incentive. Preeti, you should mention what should I give to individuals to motivate them for diffusion of innovation. You have mentioned technology, but what should I give to you, let's say? What would you prefer as an individual in material form to be motivated to go to the people and diffuse the solutions to large number of people? I mean, maybe you would like to go to 10 villages or 15 villages or 100 villages on your motorbike or in your car or whatever. Or you would like to say, give me a car and I will guide to travel to many places and talk about solutions that we have for people. That may be an incentive. Transportation may be an incentive. So Preeti, you have to mention what incentive you need. You should specifically mention incentive. Similarly, mention what kind of award. Okay, other people have done certificate, Ashmika, right? Others should also put it. Please keep putting up, keep putting up. Also mention their preferences of specific incentives required to motivate you, or for that matter, anybody else, to diffuse the innovation. It could be to the grassroots innovator, it could be to the institutional innovator, to diffuse the innovation to larger number of people in the society. They want wider reach of the innovation. What incentive should we give people? So they will diffuse either their own innovation or innovation of third party. So you know about food processing machine, you know about some weeder, you know about some variety of wheat, you know about chickpea, or you want pigeon pea variety, you know about some herbal pesticide, you know about some machine, you know about some sprayer. What incentives does one need to make it reach larger number of people? That is what we are trying. And I have shared the link. This is the link which Megha has shared, where you can enter your preferences. We'll wait for 5 more minutes. We have only got 20 so far. Friends, what's happening to the other people? I will have to name Nandita, Abhishek, so much HP. But what you have to put is specific instrument, specific incentive, specific recommendation of yours, which will help people diffuse their solutions widely. Either you as an innovator, you as a third party, you come to know of an innovation. Normally, you just keep it to yourself and sit down. What will motivate you to say, look, I have now come across this innovation, it may be useful to you, to your own communities, your own people in the village, your people, your relatives, or your other friends should also know about that solution. I mean, if you look at it on social media, the crib is far more. This fellow has not done this fellow has not done that. Yes, you can fill multiple times. You can add more than one solution, more than one recommendation. You can. Under your name, you just keep so that the other person will enter after you. So you add the column there and then add. No, you can't add column, sorry. You can keep on adding. You can keep on adding. It will come up in the same form, same field, I suppose. So we will wait for 5 more minutes. After that, somebody wants to do it, it will remain open. You can continue to. Non-material individual means incentive is for individual, but it is in the non-material form. That means a letter of appreciation. Letter of appreciation doesn't give you materially anything. It's just a piece of paper. But there's what is written on the piece of paper is appreciation. That means a lot to individuals sometimes, but there is no material component to it. There is no money in it. There is no physical thing in it. You can't buy an equipment with that letter. You can't pay extra money to your staff or to your associate. So, but the letter may mean something to you. So if you think that non-material individual appreciation means something useful, then you can add what you want to add. Non-material collective. Okay, Sushri. Non-material collective. Now, the beneficiaries are a group or whole community, whole country for some time, a whole community or a village or whole society at large. And it is non-material. So let us say, if we include a lesson about innovator in a textbook, that will benefit all the students who read the textbook, isn't it? Will that innovator whose lesson it is get anything out of it? No. If I have 5 lessons, then all the 5 people get nothing, except that younger generation comes to know of their collective contribution and may feel inspired. So non-material collective is when it is not intended for any one individual. Incentive is for group. Yes, exactly. Motivate a group of people and without any money or material inducement. It is a non-material recognition. So if let us say, if I develop a separate line for elderly people at the railway station or at the airport, it doesn't change anything. It just gives you a little comfort, that's all, that you don't have to stand in a queue longer. But an incentive for elderly people to travel and be taken care of. Just an example. It's for a category of people or a category of users, but it is not in a material form. Material collective could be if I create a trust fund, I create a group award, whole team is given an award, a whole committee is given an award, then it is material collective. Material individual is, the Prime Minister recently transferred 6,000 rupees to every farmer. Millions of farmers were given. Now that was material individual. But for a whole community. So it was not for one individual, it was for a community. Given individual account, but it was given for the country. All right, so we will now move towards that film. We will see a small film.
Our motivations are unbelievably interesting. I mean, I've been working on this for a few years, and I just find the topic still so amazingly engaging and interesting. So I want to tell you about that. The science is really surprising. The science is a little bit freaky, okay? We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think. There's a whole set of unbelievably interesting studies. I want to give you two that call into question this idea that if you reward something, you get more of the behavior you want. If you punish something, you get less of it. So let's go from London to the mean streets of Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the northeastern part of the United States. And let's talk about a study done at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Here's what they did. They took a whole group of students and they gave them a set of challenges. Things like memorizing strings of digits, solving word puzzles, other kinds of spatial puzzles, even physical tasks like throwing a ball through a hoop. Okay, they gave them these challenges and they said to incentivize their performance, they gave them 3 levels of rewards. Okay, so if you did pretty well, you got a small monetary reward. If you did medium well, you got a medium monetary reward. And if you did really well, if you were one of the top performers, you got a large cash prize. Okay, we've seen this movie before. This is essentially a typical motivation scheme within organizations, right? We reward the very top performers. We ignore the low performers and the other folks kind of in the middle. Okay, you get a little bit. So what happens? They do the test. They have these incentives. Here's what they found out. 1, as long as the task involved only mechanical skill, bonuses worked as they would be expected. The higher the pay, the better their performance. Okay, that makes sense. But here's what happens. But once the task called for even rudimentary cognitive skill, a larger reward led to poorer performance. Now, this is strange, right? A larger reward led to poorer performance? How can that possibly be? Now, what's interesting about this is that these folks here who did this are all economists, 2 at MIT, 1 at the University of Chicago, 1 at Carnegie Mellon, okay? The top tier of the economics profession. And they're reaching this conclusion that seems contrary to what a lot of us learned in economics, which is that the higher the reward, the better their performance. And they're saying that once you get above rudimentary cognitive skill, it's the other way around, which seems like this kind of, the idea that these rewards don't work that way seems vaguely left-wing and socialist, doesn't it? It's kind of this kind of weird socialist conspiracy. For those of you who have those conspiracy theories, I want to point out the notoriously left-wing socialist group that financed the research, the Federal Reserve Bank. So this is the mainstream of the mainstream coming to a conclusion that's quite surprising, seems to defy the laws of behavioral physics. So this is strange, a strange finding. So what do? They say, this is freaky. Let's go test it somewhere else. Maybe that $50 or $60 prize isn't sufficiently motivating for an MIT student, right? So let's go to a place where $50 is actually more significant relatively. Right? So let's take the experiment. We're going to go to Madurai, India, rural India, where $50, $60, whatever the number was, is actually a significant sum of money. So they replicated the experiment in India roughly as follows. Small rewards, the equivalent of 2 weeks' salary. Small performance, low performance, 2 weeks' salary. Medium performance, about a month's salary. High performance, about 2 months' salary. Okay, so those are real good incentives. Okay, so you're going to get a different result here. Well, what happened, though, was that the people offered the medium reward did no better than the people offered the small reward. But this time around, the people offered the top reward. They did worst of all. Higher incentives led to worse performance. What's interesting about this is that it actually isn't all that anomalous. This has been replicated over and over and over again by psychologists, by some extent by sociologists, and by economists, over and over and over again. For simple, straightforward tasks, those kinds of incentives, if you do this, then you get that, they're great. For tasks that are algorithmic, set of rules where you have to just follow along and get a right answer. If then rewards, carrots and sticks, outstanding. But when the task gets more complicated, when it requires some conceptual creative thinking, those kinds of motivators demonstrably don't work. In fact, money is a motivator at work, but in a slightly strange way. If you don't pay people enough, they won't be motivated. What's curious about, there's another paradox here, which is that the best use of money as a motivator is to pay people enough to take the issue of money off the table. Pay people enough so that they're not thinking about money and they're thinking about the work. Now, once you do that, it turns out there are 3 factors that the science shows lead to better performance, not to mention personal satisfaction. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is our desire to be self-directed, to direct our own lives. Now, in many ways, traditional notions of management run afoul of that. Management is great if you want compliance, but if you want engagement, which is what we want in the workforce today as people are doing more complicated, sophisticated things, self-direction is better. Let me give you some examples of this, of almost radical forms of self-direction in the workplace that lead to good results. Let's start with this company right here, Atlassian, an Australian company. It's a software company, and they do something really cool. Once a quarter on a Thursday afternoon, they say to their developers, for the next 24 hours, you can work on anything you want. You can work on it the way you want. You can work on it with whomever you want. All we ask is that you show the results to the company at the end of those 24 hours in this fun kind of meeting, not a star chamber session, but this fun meeting with beer and cake and fun and other things like that. It turns out that that one day of pure undiluted autonomy has led to a whole array of fixes for existing software, a whole array of ideas for new products that otherwise had never emerged. One day. Now, this is not an if-then incentive. This is not the sort of thing that I would have done 3 years ago before I knew this research. I would have said, you want people to be creative and innovative? Give them a freaking innovation bonus. If you can do something cool, I'll give you $2,500. They're not doing this at all. They're essentially saying, you probably want to do something interesting. Let me just get out of your way. One day of autonomy produces things that had never emerged. Okay, let's talk about mastery. Mastery is our urge to get better at stuff. We like to get better at stuff. This is why people play musical instruments on the weekend. You got all these people who are acting in ways that seem irrational economically. They play musical instruments on weekends. Why? It's not going to get them a mate. It's not going to make them any money. Why are they doing it? Because it's fun, because you get better at it, and that's satisfying. Go back in time a little bit. I imagine this if I went to my first economics professor, a woman named Mary Alice Schulman, and I went to her in 1983 and said, Professor Schulman, can I talk to you after class for a moment? Yeah. I got this inkling. I got this idea for a business model. I just want to run it past you. Here's how it would work. You get a bunch of people around the world who are doing highly skilled work, but they're willing to do it for free and volunteer their time, 20, sometimes 30 hours a week. Okay, she's looking at you somewhat skeptically there. Oh, but I'm not done. And then what they create, they give it away rather than sell it. It's going to be huge. I mean, she truly would have thought I was insane. Okay, it seemed to fly in the face of so many things. But what do you have? You have Linux powering 1 out of 4 corporate servers in Fortune 500 companies, Apache powering more than the majority of web servers, Wikipedia. What's going on? Why are people doing this? Why are they? Why are these people, many of whom are technically sophisticated, highly skilled people who have jobs, okay? They have jobs. They're working at jobs for pay, doing sophisticated technological work. And yet, during their limited discretionary time, they do equally, if not more, technically sophisticated work, not for their employer, but for someone else for free. That's a strange economic behavior. Economists who look into it, why are they doing this? It's overwhelmingly clear. Challenge and mastery, along with making a contribution. That's it. What you see more and more is a rise of what you might call the purpose motive, is that more and more organizations want to have some kind of transcendent purpose, partly because it makes coming to work better, partly because that's the way to get better talent. And what we're seeing now is, in some ways, when the profit motive becomes unmoored from the purpose motive, bad things happen. Bad things ethically sometimes, but also bad things just like not good stuff, like crappy products, like lame services, like uninspiring places to work. That when the profit motive is paramount, or when it becomes completely unhitched from the purpose motive, It's just, people don't do great things. More and more organizations are realizing this and sort of disturbing the categories between what's profit and what's purpose. And I think that actually heralds something interesting. And I think that the organizations that are flourishing, whether they're profit, for profit, or somewhere in between, are animated by this purpose model. Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's the founder of Skype. He says, our goal is to be disruptive, but in the cause of making the world a better place. Pretty good purpose. Here's Steve Jobs. I want to put a ding in the universe. All right? That's the kind of thing that might get you up in the morning and racing to go to work. So I think that, that we are purpose maximizers, not only profit maximizers. I think the science shows that we care about mastery very, very deeply. And the science shows that we want to be self-directed. And I think that the big takeaway here is that if we start treating people like people and not assuming that they're simply horses, slower, smaller, better smelling horses, if we get past this kind of ideology of carrots and sticks and look at the science, I think we can actually build organizations and work lives that make us better off. But I also think they have the promise to make our world just a little bit better.
So, any other reaction? That's very interesting. That is purpose. Ashmika, you made a wonderful point, and that is what we are going to spend most time after the break, as to what is that purpose which gives us joy and satisfaction. And Ashmika has said, when you find a lot of people using the solution that you developed, that gives you a great satisfaction. And I completely agree with that. But how do we do that? How do we generate that? Not for me alone, but for my entire team, my friends, because after all, finding solution requires group action. So yes, we will discuss that in more detail today. Anybody else wants to say anything quickly? Any other reaction that you quickly want to share after what you saw? Whatever comes to your mind, whatever you feel. Yes, incentives motivate us, but incentives which give us freedom, incentives which give us professional satisfaction, incentives which give us self-respect, incentives that make me do what I want to do for a while. And purpose. What the point was that if you are purpose-driven, the first slide I showed today was North Star, Dhruv Tara. If you identified your Dhruv Tara, your North Star, yes, Rishu, that's it. So if you can identify the great purpose, the larger overarching goal that will make a lot of the problems of life trivial, you will not even bother who's saying what and what small irritating encounter that you had. Arun, that is the point. Motivation comes from the purpose, not from the material incentives. That's what one is trying to say. The incentive that we give to ourselves is a little more important than what others give to us. Having a purpose is your internal incentive. What drives you every day when you get up in the morning and makes you do what other people may not work hard enough to do, what makes you push the edge, the frontier, that energy, where does it come from? That it doesn't tire you. You are as energetic in the middle of the night as you were in the morning. Where does this energy come from? Prashant, I understand that funds are important, but assume for a minute, if funds are available, do you think that all those who have access to fund are doing outstanding work? Are they're solving the problem of society very well? So there's something more than that. That means it is useful, necessary, but not sufficient. और अभी next hour में हमको बातचीत ज़्यादा करनी है, मेरे को कम बोलना, आपको ज़्यादा बोलना है. So first question that I would like to share is from Vipin. Vipin, I can share with the class, you don't mind? Or would you like to speak out? Why don't you speak out?
I was just curious about, like, when we say this purpose connect to the motivation. So like any other emotion, motivation has also its own up and downs, right? Maybe I will not feel the same motivation in every day. So I think rather than motivation, discipline is a better thing. Like even if I'm not so motivated to do work, but I stick to the plan, like if I'm more disciplined, then maybe it is possible to achieve the goals. So that's what I think. So maybe like.
My reaction to that is the following.
Okay, sir.
That while it is true that we have ups and downs, that I 100% agree with. What I have difficulty in agreeing is that someday my commitment to my purpose will go down. My commitment to my purpose, the long-term purpose that I want to pursue, should remain intact. No matter what, no matter when, no matter what. How does it happen? I think the driver for constant flow of energy, which motivates you to try harder, bring more examples, push harder to get more logical evidence for your argument, for what you want to do, that comes from the larger purpose. So people who are purpose driven or who have a broader purpose in mind. So let's say if we took the case of a lot of our volunteers in Honeybee Network, took the case of grassroots innovators. Now, yeah, it is true that they may not be equally energetic every day. That is true for all of us. But would it happen that they will become mechanical on some days and more motivational on other days? I'm not sure. Because the moment you become mechanical, you don't merely lose energy that day, you lose the accumulated energy also. Because then that means it is all right to do things mechanically. It's all right not to push the frontier. It's all right if someday you have not asked a good question. It's all right if you have not read something different from what you had read yesterday. I mean, you remember earlier, one of the class I discussed about the download to upload ratio. What did I share today? What did I download? If you're, supposing this is the question, and I want to motivate myself to change my download to upload ratio. Yes, someday I will upload less. Someday I will upload more. But if I have many days when I don't upload at all anything, I don't share my ideas, don't share my comment, there is a problem. Then I'm losing that broader purpose. So my suggestion is, just like many things, if you are a musician, you need to practice every day, isn't it? Can you say that you can become an outstanding performer, outstanding singer, outstanding sitar player, outstanding tabla player by practicing only occasionally, Ravi, Vipin?
No, sir, that's not possible. No,
that's the point. That is exactly the point. If you think that we need to practice to become better or perfect, that practice also required that even pursuing a goal is also requiring some practical steps every day. Every day, some steps. Otherwise, I will lose energy. I will lose force. I will lose motivation. I will become mechanical. I will start indulging in trivial things. I will start enjoying mundane things. And the moment I start enjoying mundane things, my desire to get that profound interest will go down. So, Deepak, that's a good thought. Honeybee Foundation has a YouTube channel, or we can also create a separate channel for ACSIR if you wish. There is a YouTube channel actually at ACSIR. And you can start uploading. So, I mean, what can be uploaded? Let's say all of you want to teach one topic of one class or one subject in which you are good at. So, Pooja, how did you know that? Maybe you discovered it somehow. I will leave that point. But Pooja, the point I'm making is that if you wanted to create content, even today, we do not have content in local language for our children, for all classes. Some of you might remember Samir Brahmachari, former DG. You know what he has done? I think I showed it to you in the earlier class. Sahaj Path. He and his friends have created an online call center in Bengal. And now I think they're doing it in Faridabad. For free online questions answered for any student on any subject, on any topic. What a great thing. He's a man of genomics. And He was concerned about education, as I'm equally concerned. So when he told me, I was so excited. And this is where a lot of very proficient people are giving time of an hour or two. So there's a call center which has a call hunting. That means if you're busy, it will go to next person. And there are a lot of people who are in line. So everybody's question gets answered. Has mentioned that ACSR is ready to upload the students' lecture in ACR channel. Now look at that. That opportunity is already there before you. So if you want to give a lecture on any topic, which you are either studying now, or you have studied well, or you want to share it with the students, younger students, BSc students, MSc students, you want to explain to them, let's say, concept of entropy, or you want to explain to them surface tension, or you want to explain something else, physics, chemistry, biology, whatever, and with examples, with your own illustrations, with your own research, whatever. It could be based on nature, it could be based on physical objects, it could be based on an instrument. How does that instrument work, for example? How does the electron microscope work, for that matter? So all of this could be very useful and be shared in those lectures, and that will change your upload to download ratio. Your upload will become more than download. I'm just mentioning the question that what Vipin had said. Yes, ups and downs are most possible. That is part of life. But if there's a purpose, and the purpose requires commitment, then how can you not maintain your motivational level? Nothing comes in the way. Very simple. Your commitment to that purpose is primary. Everything else is secondary. And that has to be maintained and sustained through practice. That's what I'm trying to say, that no matter what profession we follow, if there is a good cook, and if you for 1 week, that fellow doesn't cook anything, something will be lost. If you are a sitar player, something will be lost. If you're a tabla player, something will be lost. If you're a singer and you don't do riyaz on certain days, something will be lost. So all of these things are important and must be practiced regularly. Any other question about incentives? Pradeep, you are right. I agree with you that that desire has to come from within. It cannot be given by anybody else. But your suggestions make a difference. Your suggestions make a difference, and the system will be nudged and system will respond then. So it will work. We already have option that ACSR welcomes all innovation and ideas, and they will upload at their YouTube channel whatever lesson. You want to talk about a problem and want to invite crowdsource ideas to tackle that, you can upload your YouTube there and then share it wherever you want to. So I think it's a good idea. I'm very happy that ACSR is showing so much willingness, and Kavyarasan has already agreed and mentioned to me in the mail, but I think I can share with all of you that ACSR will be very happy to upload your YouTube content on any aspect of technological change, any aspect of technological change, so long as it is of larger interest, so long as it contributes to the social good, so long as it builds capacity of somebody in the society, whosoever it could be. It could be nurse, it could be doctor, it could be farmer, it could be artisan, it could be mechanic, it could be laborer, anybody. So any other comment on how these motivations work? Because I would like to spend some time on what motivates us and what are the ways in which people have found solutions to this problem of ebb and tide. I mean, sometimes, yes, we do go down, all of us first, downs and up, but even then, how does the boat keep sailing? Because the winds keep blowing, so the boat must sail. And if boat has to sail, you have to tame the sails in a manner that boat will remain on track. It's in a dynamic system, in a turbulent system. You leave for 1 minute and it may go in a different direction if the winds are turbulent. If it is stable, then it's okay. You can set the sail and we'll keep moving. So we are in a dynamic world where keeping the boat on its track requires constant manipulation of the sails. Anybody want to? There are two issues before us. One, that when we want to do translational research, we want to do research which will go to the people. How do we, what will be the motivation that will not only help us to develop solution, but take them from lab to the land and then bring it back, the feedback of the user to the lab, and then modify it. So the process of development will become iterative. See, there are very few products which are perfect in the very first case. But if there is no iteration, there is no user connect, we are not inviting users of our solution to the lab and discussing with them, then of course we will not be able to develop. Jitendra, can you specify your question? What do you mean by individual share of incentive? Are you saying the work is collective and how do we find who should get how much? Is that what you're talking about, Jitendra? Well, that's an interesting point. Very interesting point. How I tackled, I'll mention to you. You may not agree with me and you may not like it. Two things. So for example, in academic work, authorship is an important part, but there are people to whom authorship doesn't matter. So let's say there are field staff who don't know a word of English. And 80% people in our organizations are actually non-English knowing, 80%. Both in Sashti and Gyan, they cannot write. Some people cannot write at all, and some people cannot write one page of correct English. So, but then why did we build a foundation? Because they're genuine, they're authentic. So one thing is when we give authorship to some such people, they won't benefit from that directly. They won't get any benefit in career or otherwise, because people who will interview them for any job in future will know that they cannot write this paper. But they've contributed ideas to the paper. And those ideas they can share, they can defend. So it is not necessary that authorship is only given to those who contribute in writing paper, those who contributed ideas. Last time, you remember, one student mentioned that there was an error in the instrument of 10%, some, I think, NSI, National, what was that institute in Chandigarh? And Scientific Instrumentation Lab. So there, I think somebody mentioned that when they were doing Maha, the example was of micro 3D printing, and they mentioned that there was an error coming. CSIO. Yes, Chitendra, now I remember. You mentioned that in CSIO. And then the lab attendant gave the idea about some correction of 0.10 or whatever that value was. And then after that, everything was falling in place. Now, let us say that was an important part of your paper, important part. Then shouldn't that person get credit? So first issue is find out those who have contributed to a solution and wouldn't ordinarily ask for credit. That is the first principle. Lab attendant, a student, a junior student, who you were talking at the dining table, and he gave an idea, and you said, "Wow, that's interesting." Or he cited a paper to you, "Sir, you can read this paper," or "Brother, or sister, you can read this paper. It might be interesting to you." And you found it very interesting. That person has no power on you. You have power on that person. And at that moment, you give credit to that person. That's the first thing. First claimant of the credit is the one who is least powerful, but whose ideas have made that solution possible. Second is the one who has contributed. Of course, those are well-established norms. Third is if you have taken the knowledge from a farmer or from a mechanic or from a laborer or from an industrial worker, they should also be made co-author. All the papers in NIF which have been published on farmers' innovations by the scientists who worked on them have, maybe there are exceptions where they're not, otherwise all the papers have innovator as co-author. Even if Chattopadhyay did something, was at that time in ICMR's institute in Kolkata, now he's director of the ICMR institute in Karnataka. And he was working on a solution for typhoid. And Mr. Prasad from Jharkhand was given the authorship, even though that person wouldn't know a word of anything mentioned in the paper in tribal language. But he was given, he had and patent was entirely in his name. So it is not that difficult. It is difficult, but not that difficult to find apportioning. The moment you become little generous in giving credit to those who are less power and who are less claim on your resources or your time, then your mind will flow very rightly, and you will obviously become generous, and you will obviously become right, because the heart is moving in the right direction. I don't know if I could answer your question well. Jitendra, does it make sense? Anybody else? How do we generate incentives? What incentive can I give to my colleague who is working very hard for a solution for the field? What can I do? Which I don't do at the moment.
It depends on its productivity or outcome. Like efforts are like a different thing. Of course, everybody just do harder, but it depends on some kind of production or productivity that have increased in such a manner. So maybe.
But I mean, can you take an example of a concrete? I mean, just take a solution in mind. Say, which institute do you come from?
Sir, I'm from CSIR NPL.
NPL.
Yes,
So
sir.
let's say you got a new director. I met him recently.
Yes, sir.
Very, very good professional. And I was telling him something that I should tell you. Slight digression. Then I'll come to your point. I said, you know, J.C. Bose did research in wireless. He was ahead of Marconi. And also in biology, he did research on physiology. So I said, does NPL have a lab where biology and physics, or for that matter, communication, are studied together? So can we revive J.C. Bose lab in NPL so that students will get exposure to both the disciplines, and maybe they will get similar ideas or better ideas than what J.C. Bose got? So I don't know if this is going to happen, but just to tell you that if you or some of you initiate.
But as I think that this whole work or all we are working, so just we are working on interdisciplinary, not a pure chemistry or pure. It's just like biochemistry, biophysics, chemistry and bio. Different kinds of like interdisciplinary sciences we are doing. So this is not completely pure or core subject we are doing. This is some application part of different field with such kind of compositions or composites. So
Okay, so
it may be possible.
Yeah, let's go further, Priyanka, that you have developed a composite material. You mentioned composite. Let's say you have used a biological waste, say coconut pith. Both coconut fiber and coconut pith, tons of coconut pith is lying as unused material in Kerala, wherever the fronds are processed, coconut fiber is processed. And the pith is that powdery substance that comes out. Now you have developed a composite out of it, and that technology you want to just share with the society at large, small entrepreneurs. Let's say this cost is hardly in 25,000 rupees. The person can set up a small unit and make sheets or tubes or rods or ropes, whatever, from that composite, which can then have various other industrial applications. Now, this technology has been developed, but it is not going anywhere. It is lying on the shelf. What should we do? Priyanka, what should we do to make it reach society?
Sir, we need to understand the application part of the society, so that there's some motivation if we are doing something, I guess. So motivational thing is that if it is required or not, and we are not that much confirmed with our results that was gonna be, because हम बहुत ज्यादा precise नहीं हो सकते चीजों को लेकर के नहीं ये ऐसा ही आएगा. We are just doing and we can't be so much predictable कि ये ऐसा ही होगा. So it's not it will be shelf only, but maybe we can improve with some other application and some other productivity and all. So it's not depend, it just depend on our thinking कि हम इसको और better कैसे कर सकते हैं. This is
No,
all
but
how
let
results go.
me ask any one of you who has a solution in the lab which can help common people, let us say. Anybody can take an example of a real solution that you have in your lab. And for some reason, you're busy with your thesis, so you have no time. Others are not taking much interest either. And this solution is lying on the lab, on the shelf. ऐसा होता है? Is there any example of this kind? Inky, anybody? Is there an example of a solution that you are aware of which can be used by the society, but which is lying on the shelf? Coir waste into bio oil. Now that's a great idea, Jitendra. But my question is, how many have we been able to give it to a coir board or some units in the state so that people can experiment with it, and then maybe they can find different ways of either improving it or just maintaining it. I mean, it's all right if not everybody can improve the things that you develop, but some may be able to improve. But if it keeps lying on the shelf, don't you think that there's a problem that a large number of solutions lie on the shelf and don't reach people? Is it true? Am I right? Is it a good assumption? It's a bad assumption. So what do we do? What kind of incentive we should generate for scholars like you? Forget about others. Those who developed it maybe have retired or may have moved to another subject. Sometimes people change their subject. एक प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व किया उसके बाद दूसरी प्रॉब्लम पे लग जाते हैं. एक PhD student आया था, उसने that PhD student solved one problem. That student got a job somewhere else. He became a faculty member. Then he did something else. Lost interest in the problem. That solution, a half-baked brick, is lying on the shelf. It needs some more work, refinement, but it is not getting then done. And I'm sure there are many such half-baked bricks lying on the shelf, which can benefit society at large. But there it is not. What kind of incentive we should give to scholars to take some time off? I know that when you have a thesis to write, you will obviously like to give 90% time to that. Is it possible 5%, 2%, 3% time to be allocated to a solution that you like among many that are available, and do something by which it at least goes in the hand of potential user who may accept it, who may not accept it? That's a different matter. How do we do? What do we do? What mechanism do we develop by which this will happen? That's what I wanted to hear. क्या करना चाहिए?
Sir, can I say something?
Yeah, please go ahead, Vrinder.
Sir, actually क्या है कि जो मुझे लग रहा है sir, that the main problem is political will, because in Haryana, groundwater is declining at an alarming rate every year. सबको पता है. Most of the people are aware about this, but उनके पास option नहीं है कि वो पैडी को छोड़ के किसी और के option के लिए जा ही नहीं सकते, because there is no market, structured market. So, मतलब I think the biggest problem is political will.
Jitendra, ऐसा है, supposing you come from a farming family, I don't know, but if you...
Yeah, I'm from farming family, sir.
And let's say 1 biga of your land, 1/4 or 1/3 of an acre, depending upon how many bigas an acre. In your
Yes, sir. 10 acres. Yes.
So that amount, or 10 cents, let us say, you allocate for an experiment. I'm
Yes,
sure
sir.
for your family can easily afford that.
Yeah.
And when you do an experiment, for example, stevia is doing very well in Haryana today. A lot of people are making a lot of money out of stevia cultivation.
Stevia as well as mushroom as well, sir.
Okay, mushroom also in Sonipat, Panipat side. There are a large number of
In Jane, one of the guys is working very hard on mushroom.
Yeah. Now, what I'm saying, and then there is a machine, we gave an award in NIF to that machine, how to convert mushroom waste into compost faster. So there are lot of derivative innovations which make the whole value chain efficient. My question is, let's say you are working in mushroom and you were not aware of this machine that I mentioned just now, which was given an award.
Yes, sir.
Now you know, you will find out on nifindia.org and you will search it.
Yes.
You write mushroom, it will come up. Then you tell your friend in gene that, look, I came across today in the class an innovation about a mushroom waste processing machine. You also have a lot of waste. Today you don't know what to do with it, but now it can become a very good fertilizer and you can sell it to the other farmers and earn money out of the waste. He will be happy about it. And the machine helps in reducing the time within which it is processed. It moistures and turns both at the same time. So would that not be a good idea? What incentive would you need to do this? What will it take you to do this? क्या करना पड़ेगा इसके लिए आपको?
Sir, ठीक है. इसके लिए one of the major point is the awareness, sir.
My question is now, you know this, okay? I put it on the chat.
Yes, sir.
This solution is available. You have a friend who needs this solution. And let's say you get busy with your research today, you forget it.
Yes, sir.
After 2 days, you say, Professor had mentioned, but where would I find a chat? That lesson is, I have to write to him. And actually, I will write to him. Then 1 or 2 days, you think about it. 3rd, 4th day, you forget about writing also. So you don't write to me. You didn't copy this link. I'm not saying you will do that. I'm just saying an example. You forget to copy. You don't write to me to ask for the link. And you don't search it yourself on the net. And your friend remains deprived of this solution. ऐसा होता है कि नहीं होता कभी-कभी?
नहीं होता है सर, लेकिन मेरा point कुछ और था सर.
वहीं रुको. If it happens, if our inertia comes in the way of a user in the field getting access to an innovation, let us go to the root of this behavior that we do many more things that we find time for. We find time for something that we feel important, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
जो काम important होता है उसके लिए time निकालते हैं. We will all find time. But sometimes certain things we don't find time for. That means they are not important for us. Not important enough. They're important, but they're not important enough. I think the difference is in our prioritization process. I'm saying, instead of blaming politicians, let me come to the water. Harbhajan Singh, a farmer in Hisar, sometime when you go to Hisar,
yes, sir.
I can get you the contact from Manjeet, from our dear friend.
I have missed it so many times.
Yeah. Now, what did Harbhajan did? Harbhajan first did irrigation in alternate row of cotton. हरियाणा में cotton होती है ना को?
हाँ sir, हाँ वो उस तरफ होता है sir.
So he gave 1 row, then left second, then given third, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, like that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Half. Water was half.
Yes.
Second irrigation was 2, 4, 6, 8. And water quantity was half, but production did not go down at all. So all the saving in the water cost, irrigation cost, was net profit. Plus, when you give less irrigation, the pest attack also goes down. So pesticide expenditure also went down. Eventually, now he has modified the system. What he has done is he gives water between the 2 rows in a channel. So what I'm saying is there are people who are doing experiments on saving water. Our regret is that we are not looking for those solutions, and those solutions are not finding market. So on one hand, there is a farmer who has done an innovation. On the other hand, there is a scholar of CSIR who needs that innovation, at least not only for his own farm, but also, let's say, for other farms. And दोनों में connection नहीं हो रहा है. Both are not getting connected. Today's session is aimed at how do we make this connection, and then how does the scholar get motivated to diffuse this innovation to other people? I'm looking for the solution of that.
Sir, राइस बाउल जो है अंबाला, पंचकुला, करनाल, कुरुक्षेत्र, जब उनसे हम बात करते हैं, मैं कहते से बिलोंग करता हूँ बेसिकली, तो जब उनसे हम बात करते हैं एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन की, तो ये बोलते हैं कि फला ने ऐसा किया था, उसके मक्का लगाया था, उसको कुछ नहीं मिला. तो ये जो इनर्शिया है, जो फियर है सर, उसको आप डील कैसे करोगे सर? वो तो ये बोल देते हैं कि नहीं.
Let me tell you.
हमारे पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं.
Yes, I'm going to tell you about a solution which my friend on his Facebook is available, Dharamveer Kamboj from Yamunanagar.
Yes, sir.
He has developed a machine for making milk out of maize.
Yes, sir.
Milk cobs before they dry, they are milky, right? So he has, when you press those grains of of corn, they convert it, a milky substance comes out. This milk, he has made cheese out of this milk. He has made sweets out of this milk. Now, in the region where you live, not too far from your district, in Yamunanagar, there is an innovator who has developed a multi-purpose food processing machine, who has developed a milk making machine, I mean, vegetable milk making machine out of corn. He has made a lot of products out of that. So if farmer did not get much out of corn, but if he uses this machine, he will get many times more return. So people have to do in situ.
लेकिन सर उसका कमर्शियलाइजेशन पॉइंट भी देखना पड़ेगा ना सर कि वो कितना सक्सेसफुल हुए उसमें.
Of course, he's selling that. No, so I'm saying the point is limited. That experimentation. We do experimentation in a small plot. We demonstrate result. Somebody else studies that. They will take it forward. Eventually, a word of mouth, it will spread. My problem is that many of you come from farming families, many of you come from industrialist family, many of you come from professional families. In each domain ground which we come, we have our own social circle. We all have social capital. We have all social network. And we don't share innovations in our network. So we don't diffuse it within our family and social friend circle. Forget about diffusing it to the farmers or artisans or mechanics. First, let us try to resolve the problem. What will motivate me, each one of you? You are all on social network. You are all on social media. सब लोग के पास Facebook का पेज होगा ना भाई? Is it true?
सर थोड़ी सी बात बोलना चाहूंगा सर.
हाँ बोलिए.
I have submitted my CSIR 800 on declining groundwater, artificial recharge of groundwater.
ठीक है.
Okay. तो मैंने क्या किया सर कि एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट कैथल के अंदर अपना गांव चूज किया, उसका पूरे एरिया को सिमुलेट किया विद ओपन सोर्स सॉफ्टवेयर मोड फ्लो.
राइट.
तो मैंने वहां वाटर बजट उसका पूरा कैलकुलेट किया, सिमुलेट किया प्रॉपर, और देन वी गो टू द सरपंच ऑफ द विलेज की हमने उनको बताया कि आप पैडी के सीजन के अलावा जब विंटर टाइम होता है तो उसमें जो नहर, छोटी छोटी नहर निकली हुई, कनाल निकली हुई है, तो उनके पानी को आप पंचायती जमीन में स्टोर कर सकते हो एज ए लेक, आर्टिफिशियल लेक, और उसको आप फिशरीज के लिए दे सकते हो. लेकिन ड्यू टू पॉलिटिकल विल वो सारा प्रोजेक्ट अधूरा रह गया.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. पंजाब में फिशिंग हैज पिक्ड अप. इन पंजाब मेनी पीपल हैव मूव्ड फ्रॉम पैडी टू फिशिंग. प्लीज लुक अप, सर्च करना पंजाब फिशरी लिखो जरा गूगल के अंदर, अभी आपको मिल जाएंगे कितने सारे एग्जांपल है. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं हुआ है, हुआ है. What I'm trying to say, Poonam has mentioned something interesting. I'll come to that. You know, it's a very serious problem. About 40 to 50% of the pesticide in the country is consumed only in one crop, which is cotton. 40% of the entire country's pesticide is used in one crop, which is cotton. So your concern is very valid. There are so many herbal pesticides that we have developed in our lab in Sashti and Honeybee Network, and we have done tech trials in Gyan. And many of them are very effective also. Even lantana, as you might know, lantana is an invasive species in many parts of the country. Forest, non-forest land, roadside, you will find a lot of lantana. Lantana is a very useful plant for making herbal pesticide for cotton. And likewise, one farmer had mentioned to me, I don't know if I think I mentioned in Shodhya class, I'll repeat that point, that all the plants which animals don't eat are potential source of herbal pesticide. Now, our labs have developed a lot of chemical pesticide. NCL has developed, many other labs have developed, ICT has developed many. But we have not developed many herbal pesticide. Doesn't matter. We have done database on herbal pesticide plants. If you go to grid.undp.org.in, we have built a database of about 1,500 innovations for and from grassroots. And then there are other databases of published practices at honeybee.org, honeybee published practices. You will find about 300, 400 practices on pesticide, herbal pesticide. Develop them, validate them, share them with your people if you are coming from farming family. Let them make their own pesticide, do it yourself solutions. उनको कोई पैसा नहीं चाहिए उनसे. उस knowledge को use कर ले वो.
Yes, sir. I agree with you, sir.
So my concern is there is so much experimentation that we can do. Please don't, I mean, while political will is important, but don't use that as a scholar as a student, don't bring that example, don't that barrier, because I and you may not change the whole country, whole political system, but we can change something at our level. We can change in our farm, in our field, in our neighborhood. In my social media page, I can do something. I can write small examples. Yes, Preeti, please mention. Preeti, please mention. You have mentioned that you've done a study in Purnia district of Bihar.
Yes, sir.
Please talk about it.
Actually, sir, there what I have found with the help of the NGO, that the farmers are not aware about the soil quality, and they are putting so much of fertilizer, and after that saying हमारा production क्यों नहीं हो रहा है, पर yield क्यों नहीं बढ़ रहा है, we are giving so much of fertilizer in the soil. So later the NGO come forward, and he started doing the soil testing of each farmer who has raised this complaint in front of the sarpanch. When the data is come, then they have found that the organic compound is very less in the soil. That's why it is not giving yield to the farmer. And the compost, when they have said we are using the compost, हम लोग अपना compost तो दे ही रहे हैं, तो why it is not? Because now what happening, the lower farmers having not a large land to make the compost, because it need a depth of 10 to 15 meter, 10 to 15 meter. So it is not, it is highly exposed to the sunlight, so it is not decomposed in a good way, so it's become a compost. So they don't even but earlier time that compost is used, but अब ये जो है कि जगह नहीं होने की वजह से वो compost भी सही से नहीं बना पा रहे हैं, जिसके कारण due to that they are means that compost is also of not good quality. After that, this
Preeti, what is your discipline?
I am from the policy research, sir. I am taking Bihar as a study for the compost technology.
So now tell me one thing, Preeti. You must be having friends who are microbiologists.
Yes.
Talk to
No,
them.
sir.
No, but I'm coming to the point. You have heard about decomposer?
Yes, I have heard.
Now, there are some very interesting decomposers coming. One small bottle costs 10 rupees. One bottle is enough for almost, if you mix it with the irrigation water, it reaches the whole field.
So actually, the farmers are not ready to buy that organic.
No, it costs so little. My point is, if we do work on rapid decomposition, because from what you described, the real problem is how that bio-waste gets converted into manure faster, correct?
Yes.
And for that, we need effective microorganisms which will do that, correct? Now, that's a very good research problem. It's a very viable research problem. That research problem can go directly to the field. So what you have done, you have identified an unmet need from Purnia, which is microbial substance, microbial formulation, a consortium of microorganisms maybe, because there will be different kinds of biomass. They will have, some will have high lignin content, some will have low lignin content. So naturally, you would need a combination of microorganisms, right, which will decompose cellulose, make into different kinds of manure utilities, and must be done in real time. So instead of taking 2 months, 3 months, I want in 15 days maybe.
Yes.
This is also important for people who are having a lot of straw burning problem. So there are two problems. Both these problems get solved if microorganisms which can decompose bio waste, whether straw or other residues, faster, isn't it?
Yes.
Now the next step, Preeti, will be talk to your friends in microbiology. There must be people from IMTech here, and there are people from IMTech I know. There will be people from, yes, Jitendra, you're right, he mentioned that. My suggestion is persuade your friends who are still in first year of PhD or second year. Let them work on this problem. Persuade them to take this problem and work as a team. Maybe 4 or 5 students should work on different kinds of soil, different kinds of humidity, different kinds of temperature, different kinds of bio-waste, and crack this problem. Then our session today has meant a huge difference to the sustainability of soil ecosystem health and cost of the farmers, productivity of the farmers. It will make even the fertilizer more effective, as you rightly mentioned, because the ratio has to be maintained between organic and inorganic. And this is something that needs a lot of work. Actually, it needs, because one solution will not work for entire country. Same consortium will not work for humid areas like Bihar, let's say, and dry areas like Rajasthan, isn't it? So different kinds of consortia would be required for different sub agroecological zones. It's a very good problem to work on. And let me tell you one thing, to be honest,
Yes.
neither IMTech nor IBIG nor any other lab is working on it. Am I right?
Yes.
क्यों नहीं, इसलिए नहीं कह रहा हूं कि वो सब प्रॉब्लम पर उनको काम करना चाहिए, लेकिन IMTech has a huge collection of microorganisms. They are one of the collecting centers in the country, isn't it? So if some student takes up a problem of screening the existing cultures in the microbial collection of, you have a MTCC collection center of IMTech. We have deposited a lot of organisms there. We'll be happy. We have a bank of 8,000 microorganisms in our lab, collected from our Shodhyatra route from all over the country, from Ladakh to Andaman to wherever. I would very much wish a student will come and spend some time with us, maybe for internship in summer or something, 2 months to spend with us, use and screen the ability of these organisms to decompose the waste. And for all that you know, your PhD may be on whatever problem, but you can probably in 2 months find some solution. So I will very much wish that problem of this kind that you mentioned, and for which some solution may exist, some solution may not exist. How do we develop incentive? Your incentive is very clear. Many of you have mentioned that if our solution goes to the people, I feel happy. I think many of you will agree with that point. Isn't it true?
Yes, sir.
Now, if that is a motivation, and that's a good purpose-driven motivation, that people, if they use your solution, you will be very happy. That's more than anything else, probably. Now, why doesn't it happen then? Why don't our scholars go more to the field? आप गई पूर्णिया, बड़ी अच्छी बात है प्रीति. How many of you will find time to go to the field, spend time with the people, laborers, workers, industrial workers? If some of you are working in the occupational health issues, or some of you are working in the industrial, the high degree of pollutants that are there in the industrial plants, how to make that safer, what kind of technology we can develop so that workers' life doesn't get shortened because of the inhalation of the various kind of pollutants that are emerging, that are there in the lab. You know what some of the companies do? They give chickpea, chana, and gur to the workers in pollution emitting factories. Apparently, chana and gur helps in absorbing the pollutant in our gut. Now, I would like to have some research on it so that we can know, is it the best? What ratio should be done? Which gur and which chickpea variety will have the maximum efficiency in absorbing the pollutants and taking them out of our body? That will be very helpful for worker safety and workers' longevity. So there are many problems, many solutions that are there. We need to take them forward. And today's class, I don't know whether we have really found an answer. We have maybe not found an answer, but I think we have found a question, a reasonably good question, which is that we need to find our own North Star. We need to find our own motivation from within, which might push us harder in identifying the unmet need. And if we find the solution, then sharing that solution, diffusing that solution to the potential user. This is the question that I think we will like to summarize on. My suggestion is you make the group and do the assignment. If the incentive is that your assignment will get published in a book or go to the people, to the younger students who might pick up your assignment and do some research on it and solve the problem of our society, by all means, wouldn't that be a great idea? So if, for example, what is it, Preeti or someone who just mentioned, if she writes a good review of the current status of decomposers and how for various kinds of soil climatic conditions, different kinds of decomposers are required, what environmental conditions would be there for which different consortia will have to be optimized, that would be a good paper for someone to work on developing those consortia, microbial consortia. So my suggestion is, please go ahead with the assignment, Saira. If for no other reason, for sharpening your own skills in finding needs, unmet needs, and influencing the research direction. So
anything if we get a basic structure, it would be helpful for us.
Okay, okay. As we discussed the other day, the idea was that you define the problem. Why did you select it? Who will it benefit? Who are the potential user of the solution? And then what is the current state of art? You review both publications, innovations available in the market or in the field or in the literature, and patents.
Okay,
We
okay,
must
sure.
review the patents also. If you remember, I had told you about a database called as gyan.org/patent.php, where we have got 0.9 million abundant patent. You can search valid and abundant both. Valid you can find on uspto.gov and for US patents, and for Indian patent on the Indian patent site. And abundant patent we have put together. So these abundant patents can also be searched. These are open source, anybody can use them. So literature search, innovations, market search, innovation search, and the patent search. And then you identify what kind of solution will work given all the state of art that you have for the need that you identified. The need could be identified by one of you or all of you together. That's a matter of detail. I will not get into that, Poonam. So it's your group will decide what exactly is the technical need which you are trying to find a solution for. Spreadsheet circulated in which you can put down your problem that you are going to write a review on. The reviews which are found, we will get them reviewed by the experts, and those reviews which are found worthy of being published in a book, we will be able to bring out a book of those reviews. We will also like, in some cases at least.
I have a question,
yes?
sir.
Yeah, Virendra, bolo.
हाँ सर, वो जो आपने बोला अनमेट नीड्स, क्योंकि आई एम ऑलरेडी वर्किंग ऑन द प्रॉब्लम ऑफ ग्राउंड वाटर रिचार्ज, आर्टिफिशियल रिचार्ज ऑफ ग्राउंड वाटर. तो उसके अंदर सर हम जो हमने सॉल्यूशन जो प्रपोज किया है उसी को हम रिपीट कर रहे हैं इसके अंदर.
नहीं प्रपोज प्रॉब्लम को रिपीट कर सकते हो, सॉल्यूशन को नहीं. बट द रीजन देयर आर so many water recharge methods, you know, almost 1 lakh recharge wells were set up.
We are taking an advantage of simulation methods to estimate the water budget.
No, I'm not talking about water budget. I'm talking about methods of recharge. All right. We are not talking whether research should be done. That point we are taking for granted, that it is that there is a case for recharge. Okay. That point is taken for granted. Now go to the next stage. Okay, if we accept from your earlier work that there's a need for recharge, in fact, that is recognized by everybody in the country that there's a need for recharge. Everybody accepts it. So now there are different methods of recharge. Review them. I'll give you one example. Now the one example I'm giving you, some people tried to put the rainwater directly into the well. Is it right or wrong?
Yeah.
Is it right method or wrong method?
No, sir, I'm talking about...
No, I'm just tell me, is it a good method of recharge or bad method of recharge?
No, at least we are contributing to some extent.
Wrong. You know why? Because if you, in our country for ages, we never allowed water to go directly into the well. We always made a small...
Means it should be getting
the reason is that with the rain, small silt may also go into the well, small particles may also go, and they will seal the capillaries through which the water is coming into the well. Well will become a tank. You understand? It was unscientific practice. It was wrong. We had to do a lot of awareness building for telling people, don't do that. Don't let rainwater go directly into the well. It should go through recharge wells. So what I'm saying is there are different methods by which people are trying to do recharge, right and wrong. Some are specific for clay soil, some are for sandy soil, sandy loam soil, cankerous soil, red soil, etc., etc. Review different methods and then make a case as to how do we create a portfolio of options for different kinds of agroclimatic conditions.
We are working on the concept of artificial lake and exact amount of as per area requirement, sir. As per area requirement.
Exactly. Don't get fixed to one solution. Don't stay fixed to what you have already discovered. The whole effort we are making in the course is
we found something interesting, sir.
No, I'm not denying that.
Solution सर उसकी गांव में ही एग्जिस्ट करता है, उसको पता ही नहीं है सर.
मेरी बात समझिए. हर जगह तो कॉमन लैंड नहीं होती है ना. हर जगह So इसलिए we will have to find different kinds of solutions for different kinds of situations.
Okay, sir.
And as a scholar, our duty is to broaden the range of choices of people so that they will not accept 1, 2, 3, and 9, but maybe they will accept 7 and 11. You know, so give them a common topic. 3 people may have common topic, or 4 people may have common topic, right? And then there'll be a synopsis of that.
Okay,
And
sir.
you can also mention delimitation, what you will not do.
Okay, sir.
What problem you are trying to solve, which region does it belong to,
Okay, sir.
location, and what you want to do to solve the problem and what you don't want to do in that solution. So that delimitation of the problem, delimitation of your work is very important, because readers should not get expectation that they will find all solutions in your review. No. You don't have time. You don't have time to do that. So naturally, in the limited time that you have, you remain focused on some dimension of the problem, whichever you decide, as a group decide, and address that. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. It is clear. We will try to explore more.